Welcome to the Daily News Currents. Today is November 5th, and for today's headlines we have: They're giving scammers all their money. The kids can't stop them. It's the last day of the 2024 campaign. Here's where Harris and Trump are going. A new copyright rule lets McDonald's fix its own broken ice cream machines. And Quincy Jones' debt, pop master and third producer, dies at 91. Today, I'd also like to remind you to exercise your democratic right to vote. Please go out and vote if you haven't already. They're giving scammers all their money. The kids can't stop them. One son couldn't prevent his father from giving about $1 million in savings to con artists, including one posing as a female wrestling star. The two became estranged. When Chris Maniscalco walked into his father's home for the first time after the 79-year-old man died last summer, he stopped to look at family photos displayed on the refrigerator door. Bear with me, my audio may sound weird for a second. Okay, I think I'm back. Sorry about that. When Chris Maniscalco walked into his father's home for the first time after the 79-year-old man died last summer, he stopped to look at family photos displayed on the refrigerator door. Near a crayon drawing spelling out Grandpa in rainbow colors were photos of his father's 3 granddaughters at a swimming pool. The one image jumped out, a photo of Alexa Bliss, a professional wrestling personality. Mr. Maniscalco's father, Alfred, was completely smitten with the star, or at least the con artist impersonating her. He was convinced he was in a romantic relationship with Miss Bliss, leading him to give up about $1 million in retirement savings and his granddaughter's college fund to the imposter and a varied cast of online fraudsters he interacted with over several years. When Mr. Maniscalco tried to intervene, moving his father's last $100,000 to a safe account, Alfred sued him. His loyalty was to Lexi. There was nothing we could do to convince him, said Mr. Maniscalco, 47, a chemical engineer at Cottesville, Pennsylvania. An elder care specialist deemed Alfred really sharp, he said, but lacking purpose. Mr. Maniscalco and others who have tried to awaken their loved ones from this trance often feel powerless, even after they've done everything to shatter the fiction and protect their assets. They say it's as if their parents have been brainwashed into a cult. In some ways, they were. These victims were slowly groomed by con artists, posing as love interests, investment advisors, or government officials, among others. One encased inside this bubble, they were unable or unwilling to acknowledge that they had become victims, even when their own children are warning them of the con. Romance scams are the most pernicious, said Darius Kingsley, head of consumer banking practices at JP Morgan Chase. Some victims have become confrontational after being told that their wires were not going to lovers, but were being used for nefarious purposes. They don't believe it, Mr. Kinsley added, which means banks may need to shut down their accounts if the behavior continues. Americans lost an estimated $12.5 billion to online criminals in 2023, according to the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Internet Crime Complaint Center, including $652 million in losses tied to romance and confidence scams. Many more go unreported. Technology has just put everyone in scammers' crosshairs, but older Americans are disproportionately targeted for some of the costliest cons, often because they are perceived to have more money, to have less familiarity with technology, and to be potentially experiencing cognitive decline. Still fully competent people fall for scams too. For many people, it's what is going on is they are looking to fulfill an unmet need for companionship, an unmet need for financial security, an unmet need for purpose, said Marty de Lima, an interdisciplinary gerontologist and assistant professor at the University of Minnesota School of Social Work, who researches financial fraud and exploitation. Victims are often caught up in fantasies created by perpetrators, isolating them from their real-life existence and families. That's what happened with Alfred Maniscalco, who had already endured tragic losses in his life. He and his wife lost their first child to leukemia when she was 3 years old. Then, he lost his wife when their boys were 9 and 14, raising them largely on his own. Later, he was forced into early retirement from his position as an electronic technician for Con Ed, the New York power company. Chris Maniscalco said his father had opened his heart with some of his scanners, which may have played into how he was manipulated. Before the Alexa Bliss impersonator, Alfred sent money to someone called Kate, who said she had a sick 4-year-old daughter. He also sent money to Anna, who was helping a friend caring for unwell children. I believe they crafted stories that pulled on those heartstrings, Mr. Manicelli said. Alfred's involvement in scams dated back to 2018, but worsened during the isolating days of the pandemic. By the spring of 2021, his once $900,000 nest egg had dropped to $128,000. Mr. Manicelli estimates that most of his father's money went to one or more Alexa Bliss impersonators. Her persona is frequently used in scams and what is seen to be a satellite of associates. His chat messages with the sham Alexa read like a soap opera. There were battles with his son, whom he disowned after Mr. Manicelli tried to safeguard his money, other evil meddlers trying to spoil their relationship, and ongoing references to Vince McMahon, the former wrestling promoter, whom the fake Alexa accused of humiliating her after she refused his advances. But Alfred was already there, ready to extend emotional and financial support. The Alexa impersonator often claimed to be hospitalized for bad menstrual periods and would plead with Alfred to send money so the hospital could begin treating her. "Tell me how much do you have left, baby?" the imposter said in a chat. Though the scammers refused to chat with Alfred using audio or video, they occasionally reached through the screen, sending him trinkets in the mail and even pizza delivery for his birthday. Mr. Manicelli sought help from an elder care manager and therapist, and he cleaned up his father's Google account, which was connected to 2 devices with Nigerian IP addresses. He set up a trust and financial plan to help his father manage his expenses. When that didn't go far enough, he pursued the nuclear option. He took away his father's last $100,000, putting it in another account. Blocked from sending money to purportedly ailing Alexa, Alfred became enraged. That's when he sued his son in February 2023. He wanted his money back, plus interest and legal fees. At that point, Mr. Manicelli asked himself, why am I in federal court trying to help my dad? Why don't I just let it go to zero? A month after he returned the money, it was gone. If he didn't pass, he would have kept going, said Mr. Manicelli, who found documents indicating that his father may have been getting ready to sell his home. His father had already taken out personal loans using his car and televisions as collateral. The Fosters knew so much about Alfred that they began to target his family. Mr. Manicelli was threatened, he said, but scammers also sent his youngest granddaughter photos of Alfred demanding gift cards. The girls all knew that their grandpa was getting scammed, Mr. Manicelli added, so they were already on alert for suspicious activity. Although Alfred passed cognitive tests, he had become a little more reclusive, his son said. There were also some minor car accidents that he didn't want to talk about. It's really hard for us to accept that there was not some unseen mental decline, Mr. Manicelli said, since the behavior seems so out of character with the man we knew growing up. Older people may also be susceptible to the mind games the scammers are so adept at playing, using fear, creating a sense of urgency, or even stirring up excitement over the prospects of a new romance or an investment opportunity. The goal is to tip victims into a heightened state of emotion where they're no longer thinking rationally, but reacting to those appeals. Researchers at the Stanford Center of Longevity, the FINRA Investor Education Foundation, and the AARP Fraud Watch Network found they are looking for the victim's emotional Achilles heel, said Doug Shattle, managing director for fraud prevention strategies, a consulting firm in Seattle, and a former state director for AARP Washington. Back in March, Nick J., a 38-year-old software engineer in New York, went to San Jose, California to see his father for his 80th birthday. During his visit, he's witnessed his father's deep involvement with an investment scheme offered through a woman who claimed to be from South Korea. His father was up early one morning, laser-focused on real-time chats and charts, tracking the gold spot market. The next day, Nick learned that the trading platform his father was using was a hoax. Everything was in motion, giving him the idea he was placing trades, Nick said. He was up at odd hours of the night and day because he was speaking with people in Asia. His father was convinced his account had grown to $5 million, but the next day, he couldn't pull any of his money out. To protect his father's identity, the New York Times is only using Nick's first name. At the end, his father wired away nearly all of his savings, as well as some borrowed money, close to $1 million. That included $250,000 from a home equity line of credit, something his wife was shocked to discover while casually checking her bank accounts on her phone. It had been drawn down a week or so before Nick's visit. "What is going on?" she recalled asking her husband, and then he started to talk about this gold. I went absolutely crazy. Nick's 74-year-old mother was also incensed that Bank of America hadn't notified her before the entire line, which had long been inactive, was drained all at once. William Halden, a spokesperson for the bank, said those credit lines work like any other joint account, which means any authorized user can transact without the other account holder permission. Nick's mother went to the bank, but it declined her request for a reimbursement. She also filed a complaint with the Commissioner, Financial Protection Bureau. The scheme had begun with a message on WhatsApp in 2023 from Ina, the woman who claimed to be from South Korea. After Nick's father developed a romantic connection with her, Ina put him in contact with another woman, Maeve, who claimed to be her friend, and an investment advisor in Hong Kong. Ina shared married details about her life, a former husband who gambled their money away, a young son to support. Eventually, she explained her connection to the gold market. Nick's father was led to believe that he was investing in an account set up by Maeve. Maeve also claimed that she had a connection to a prominent research analyst at Bank of America who would provide real-time advice for a 10% commission, which had to be paid with new money, not with gains that Nick's father had supposedly logged. A Bank of America spokesperson said research analysts do not serve individual investors. By the end of March, Nick's father believed that his investment had grown to $5 million and was advised to reinvest most of it, which of course he inevitably lost. Every trade I made was with my own hand, his father said in an interview. I lost the whole lot. A friend in the FBI told Nick's father to stop sending Ina and her advisor money, which he did, but by that time there was little left. He still maintains that the woman and their connection was real. His wife said she believed that he clung to the idea that the money was recoverable because he wanted it to be, even needed it to be. He was giving himself hope. His relationship with Nick and his other sons remained fractured. Chris Minicelli never had the opportunity to reconcile with his father, Alfred, who died after he failed to recover from a neck surgery he needed after a fall. He lost all his money, his family relationships, and was constantly stressed through it, trying to get more and more money for them, Mr. Minicelli said. I loved him. I wanted a close relationship with him, but it ruined it. It's the last day of the 2024 campaign. Here's what Harris and Trump are doing. Election day is tomorrow. That means one mad dash by former President Donald Trump and Vice President Harris to try to drum up excitement and motivate supporters to get out and vote in a race that polls have shown is essentially tied, and one big symbolic hurrah at the end for each of them. Trump was in North Carolina and Pennsylvania ahead of a late-night rally in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where he closed out his 2026 win and went back to 2020, noting as he was a little superstitious. Harris, who has called herself the underdog in the 2024 race, is in Pennsylvania, where she will end with a concert at the rocky steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art, made famous in the Ultimate Underdog movie. Here's what the rest of the day looks like. Trump kicks off in North Carolina. Trump's rally venue on Monday, Dorton Arena, was one of his stops on the final day of the 2016 election. It followed a familiar arc of his closing rallies, running late, low energy, and leaping from topic to topic. Starting 50 minutes late, Trump's address combined his usual mix of harsh rhetoric around immigration, attacks on his enemies, and bravado about his chances of winning the election. He said on his first day of office, he would tell Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, that he would enact steep tariffs on all important goods of her country did not stop the flow of migrants and drugs across the border into the U.S. He called Harris a low IQ individual and claimed he was winning all 7 swing states. I hate the expression, actually, but it's ours to lose, he said. Does that make sense to you? It's ours to lose. Republicans carried North Carolina for decades, and with the exception of former President Barack Obama in 2008, Trump won it twice. But in the final days of the campaign, he spent more time there in Pennsylvania, another state important to his path to victory, amid a highly competitive race with Harris. Trump and other Republicans also continue to sow doubts about the results if Trump loses. Donald Trump Jr. urged Republicans to show up in force Tuesday and repeated falsehoods about election fraud. So if we win decisively tomorrow, you won't have to give them a week to find that magical truck filled with ballots, right? He said about Democrats. No one knows where they came from, but take back your country, America. Harris starts in Scranton, Pennsylvania, the hometown of Joe Biden. Harris is spending her entire day in Pennsylvania, starting in Scranton, where she gave a pep talk to canvassers. The vice president didn't refer to Trump by name in her remarks, but called him the other guy. Standing in front of the homemade sign, she recounted how she used to campaign with an ironing board, set it up in grocery stores and handing out flyers. An ironing board makes a really great standing desk, she said. That's how I love to campaign. I don't do it as much anymore. This race has been decidedly more polished. Campaign chair Jen O'Malley Dillon told reporters the day would end with the big live streaming event connecting the 7 battleground states, with front row seats for volunteers who had been helping get out the vote in the past few days. We believed all along this race is going to be incredibly close. And so it's really going to come down to mobilization. And that's why an event like tonight matters so much, and why the organization we have built matters so much, O'Malley Dillon said. They'll both be in Pennsylvania's Latino corridor. Both candidates have been fighting to win over Latino votes in Pennsylvania this year. There are about 580,000 Latino voters living in the state, most of them with Puerto Rican ties. Democrats found a new opening after a comedian called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage during Trump's Madison Square Garden rally, touching off outrage in the Latino community. Trump was rallying in Reading, where Harris is having one in Allenton, the hour's drive up the Highway 222 corridor. Afterward, she'll stop by a Puerto Rican restaurant in Reading with Representative Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat in New York. Second last stops, dueling Pittsburgh rallies. Before they head off to their big finales, each candidate will stop in Steelton. Trump is slated to hold a rally here at 6 p.m. Eastern, while Harris will give remarks at her rally around 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Both candidates have spent a lot of time in Pittsburgh, a former Democratic bastion where the Republicans have made major inroads during the campaign. Harris will be joined by Democrat niece, Katy Perry, and Andrea Day. The fact that Harris is spending her entire day in Pennsylvania shows how important this state is, and its 19 votes in the Electoral College are to Democrats. A new copyright rule lets McDonald's fix its own broken ice cream machines. The soft-serve machines at McDonald's restaurants are so often out of order that their reliable unreliability has long been the butt of jokes, memes, and now even a rallying cry at this year's presidential race. The widespread issue has even spurred the creation of McBroken, an online tracker for broken machines across the U.S. A new exemption to a copyright law could pave the way for quicker repairs to the machines, sweetening the McFlurry maker's sour reputation. Before this week, most of McDonald's ice cream makers could only be fixed through the machine's manufacturer. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which protects the code embedded in the ice cream machines, made it illegal for third parties, like McDonald's employees and franchise owners, to break the digital locks installed by manufacturers. The new rule, which went into effect on Monday, allows outside vendors to fix retail-level commercial food preparation equipment that includes McDonald's ice cream machines, as a 404 Media journalist Jason Kobler explained to NPR's Weekend Edition. It's a win for the right to repair movement, which pushes back against companies incentivized to control the repairs made by their own products. The movement advocates for legislation that gets manufacturers to provide consumers and independent repair services access to their parts, tools, and service information so consumers can get their own, legally bought devices fixed. The movement prevailed when Apple in 2021 announced it would allow customers to repair their iPhones themselves. While the change applies to the other devices and machines, McDonald's and its ice cream machines have become partially galvanizing topics, especially in the run-up to the presidential election. 2 days before the law went into effect, former President Donald Trump posted a photograph on X of him at a McDonald's drive-thru with a Photoshop President Biden holding an ice cream cone, alongside a promise, when I'm president, the McDonald's ice cream machines will work great again. It's possible the Biden administration beat him to it. Federal regulators backed right to repair advocates who petitioned for the exemption to food prep machines. Back in March, the Federal Trade Commission and the Justice Department both submitted comment to the U.S. Copyright Office recommending the change. Both iFixit, an online repair website, and Public Knowledge, a nonprofit consumer advocacy group, petitioned for the exemption. This is a significant step forward, iFixit wrote in a blog post, celebrating the move, but said the rule doesn't go far enough. While the ruling makes it legal for people to repair machines, wrote the Guide's Elizabeth Chamberlain, it doesn't allow us to share or distribute the tools necessary to do so. Quincy Jones, pop mastermind and thriller producer, dies at 91. Quincy Jones, whose decorated music career ran from the early 1950s through the best-known works of Michael Jackson and beyond, died Sunday. He was 91. His death was confirmed by his publicist in a statement to NPR that did not mention the cause of death. The statement said that Jones died peacefully in his home in Bel Air, California, surrounded by his family. Tonight, with full but broken hearts, we must share the news of our father and brother Quincy Jones' passing, the family said in the statement provided by Jones's publicist, Arnold Robertson. And although this is an incredible loss for our family, we celebrate the great life that he lived and know that there will never be another like him. In the 1990s, Jones helped oversee some of the music's biggest and most widely loved moments. He produced or co-produced 3 of Michael Jackson's best-selling albums, including 1982's record-setting Thriller, and was heavily involved in crafting USA for Africa's 1985 charity single We Are the World. But his career extended for decades in each direction. Jones long held the record for most Grammy nominations with 80 before Jay-Z and Beyoncé surpassed the total earlier this decade, and his 28 wins rank him third behind Beyoncé, 32, and conductor George Solti, 31. Born Quincy Delight Jones in 1933, Jones got a start in jazz at 19. He played trumpet in Lionel Hampton's band and soon performed on stages with some of the world's best-known stars, Ray Charles, Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley. In the 1960s, Jones became a decorated film composer. He collected 3 of his 7 Academy Award nominations in 1968 and 69, as well as his high-profile music industry executive, arranger, and producer. On albums like The Great Wide World of Quincy Jones and Quincy Jones Plays Hip Hits, he was the headliner, but he also worked behind the scenes, producing, among many others, a string of best-selling hits for Leslie Gore. In the 70s, Jones remained in the spotlight as a performer and executive, expanding his reach with high-profile projects such as the soundtrack on The Wiz. But in the 1980s, found his name attached to the remarkable string of successes from We Are the World and Thriller to his first foray into film production, 1985's The Color Purple, which made movie stars of Oprah Winfrey and Whoopi Goldberg. Jones' star-packed Back on the Block, released in 1989, won the Grammy for Album of the Year in 1991. Jones's successes extended well beyond music and film. Shortly after launching Quincy Jones Entertainment in 1990, he was presiding over long-running TV hits such as The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Mad TV. His 2001 book, Q, The Autobiography of Quincy Jones, detailed his many intersections with the music's biggest moments and stars, as well as his mental health battles and rocky upbringing in Chicago. Jones's philanthropic works extended well beyond USA for Africa and benefited causes such as musical preservation, arts education, and aid for underprivileged youth. Jones's tumultuous personal life included 3 marriages and 7 children, including actresses Kiara and Rashada Jones, his daughters with actresses Peggy Lipton and Kenya Kinsey Jones, a fashion model whose mother is German actress and model Kataji Kinsey. That is all that we have for today. Thank you so much. Goodbye.